Shalom, family. All right, so welcome back to another Faithful Friday Sabbath class, okay? And we're going to pick things back up in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, and we're going to start at verse 10, okay? Now, got me a little bit of coffee. It'll keep me more awake and alert. It's a disservice to the Most High and the community if I'm not at my best to be able to deliver the word in spirit and in truth the way it needs to be delivered. I don't want to be falling asleep, so make some adjustments. So, long work days. All right. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14 and verse 10. It says, "For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it." Because both in this present time and any time, but it's going to gradually increase as the Most High visits the earth and releases his judgments, okay? And he's going to destroy, the idols and things, throughout the earth. And also, with destroying those things, he's also going to destroy the people that worship these idols. So, made from man's hands and man's ideologies. It's not what he wants. So it's one of those things to where if that's something you don't want, then you got to repent. You got to change, and doesn't matter what the idol is that one may worship. Need it be a creature like an elephant or a man. Those things, even if it's a resemblance, supposed to be a resemblance of God, no. He doesn't want you focused on his image because it's not him. So, read on verse 11. "Therefore, even upon the idols of the Gentiles shall there be a visitation." Because that's what he's saying. He's let it be known that, hey, the reality is God will not continue to stand for the worshiping of idols and things that it's not him, or completely separated from him at all. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want you making statues, pictures, things of nature to say that these things are God, or to worship these things of God, or to bow down to them. Doesn't want that. So therefore, like it says, the end result that, like I was saying, that upon these idols of the Gentiles being the nations, so the other nations, even the thing that they worship, that no, it's going to be a visitation. And that visitation is going to be judgment. Okay, it's not going to be like we think, visit someone coming over, have a cup of tea, kick your feet up, and let's talk. No, I'm coming for judgment for these things. So, and of course, I have to call and explain why. Because in the creature of God, they are become an abomination. An abomination is something that is highly detestable. God does not like these things. It's an issue or problem for him. So we have to realize that. And stumbling blocks to the souls of men, and a snare to the feet of the unwise. So stumbling blocks to the souls of men. It's stumbling block to your soul. Things that in a stumbling block, because again, the root, stumble. You tripping up. Oh, I'm getting caught up to where what? I could fall. And that fall representing, in the spirit, that you could not only fall away from the Most High, but put yourself in a place where ultimately you're going to fall into that lake of fire rather than falling into that kingdom of heaven, walk into that kingdom of heaven. You're gonna come up short. So you don't truly want that. No one truly wants that. So you don't want to come up short with the Most High, because then there's back no trade backs. That's it. That's all she wrote. So reading on, and of course, and it says in a snare to the feet of the unwise. But the unwise, that not just being someone who maybe they lack a college education. No, maybe they didn't even finish high school. No, when it's dealing with wise and unwise, the unwise are those who are not keeping the Most High God's laws and commandments. You're not moving and operating in His wisdom. Because remember, the scriptures say the wisdom of this world is foolishness with the Most High. He's not trying to deal with the things that the philosophical things and ideological things that this world finds as wise. No, it's what He deems to be wise and good. Reading on, verse 12. For the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication. So that's what it is. So now he's taking it a step further. For the devising, those devices, the devices and the thought process and the putting together and forming of various ideas and putting these things together, that was all the beginning of spiritual fornication. Because we know when it comes down to physical or carnal fornication, that's when you're doing things outside of the marriage realm in a sexual way. So that's what you're doing. And fornication is a broad umbrella. Fornication, the things that can include are things of adultery, bestiality, homosexuality. All of those things are considered aspects of fornication. But it's not just limited to those things. If I'm just kissing, making out with someone, but no intention of marriage or being in a relationship, those things are fornication. If I'm just having sexual intercourse casually, but no intention on trying to be together, working out, that's fornication. So now when you're looking at idolatry, that's something where the Most High is saying it's similar, but in a spiritual nature. Spiritual nature, because you're supposed to be at one with the Most High God, not with many different gods and deities. And no, Most High God doesn't want that. It's not, I do this and honor this God, and I do this and honor this God, and then I give the Most High this. It's no. Most High God does not want that. He does not approve of that. That's a no-go. So, and we have to learn that and accept that and make sure we're doing what's aligned to make sure we're pleasing Him in all things, because He's the creator. It's not about pleasing ourselves. It's about pleasing the creator. So now, reading on in verse 12, for the devising of idols was the beginning of spiritual fornication. In the invention of them, the corruption of life, because these things were invented. Man began to think of these things, create these things, fashion these things to fit man's perspective and ideology. So, in things that for some, yeah, it may make sense. It may have some, truth in it, sure. But it's not necessarily, something that is good, because it's not something the Most High God approved of. Because the Most High God decides what is good and what is evil. So, and like I said, eventually in the corruption of life, because it's corrupt. It's the corruption of life, because doing these things will ultimately lead to your demise, lead to your death. And something that any time in this physical body, physical form, but primarily that life to come, that second life. And instead of you having life, you receive what? You receive death. So eternally, you don't want that. So eternal death. 14. For by the vain glory of men they entered into the world. For by the vain glory of men. Because man likes to glory in you see even today. Look at the various idols you even see today. And starting thing that man glories in these things. They find so much pride and honor in their various statues and things of that nature, to where you better not disrespect those statues. They honor those things highly. That for them, these are very important monuments. So, but for the Most High God, it's none of these are me. None of these things do I see it as being, the sincere worship of me? So, but these are things that man decided to take upon themselves to say, okay, I will call this God, or I will call this a God. So, Most High said no, negative. So, 14. For by the vainglory of men they enter into the world, and therefore shall they come shortly to an end. So, understanding that shortly, meaning it won't be long until the Most High God is going to put an end to the worshiping of idols. Well, how is he going to do that? Through the judgment and destruction he brings upon the earth. Eventually, going to get to that point, people are generally going to have a choice. It's repent or die. Either accept these things ain't God. Most High God doesn't want us worshiping these things. We need to change and worship the true Creator. Or, hey, stick to your guns, stick to doing what you want to do, how you feel, and ultimately get destroyed and perish. Choice is yours. But the reality is you have a choice. No matter how difficult, challenging, you have a choice. So, verse 15. For a father afflicted with untimely mourning, when he hath made an image of his child soon taken away, now honored him as a God, which was then a dead man, and delivered to those that were under him ceremonies and sacrifices. So now it's saying how some of these things actually come about. You wonder, how did people make some of these gods? Well, it starts in things like, even like with parenthood. You're in a position of power or authority, leader, governor, ruler, king, queen, so on and so forth. And, now you're in a situation where you're going through it because you lost your child. They died. Whether that child is 13 or 23 or 33, you lost that child, because even if your children get older, they're still your children. So even if I'm 60 and my child is 30, that's still my baby. So, but now you lost that child, guess what? You feel like they died too young, so much years ahead of them, but they died due to either natural or unnatural causes, but, got sick and something happened, or got killed by something, but nevertheless, it's like they died too soon. So you make a monument or a statue or a picture in their honor, something that resembles them. But then, because you are in a position of authority, guess what you do? You start making ceremonies and sacrifices and things, to be done with the people, like some do. It's like, okay, well, so-and-so died. And, well, on this day, we're going to make sure we bring all their favorite food and leave it here for them, because this is in honor of them. I want them to know all the food that they love. That's what we're going to make for them, and leave here, and light some candles for them, send up some prayers, to them, and next these things, it takes on another form, and it starts going, left, as the Most High will call it to her now. It's being honored as a god or a deity. Even if that wasn't the intention, that's what it became. That's what it became. And that becomes a problem. So, 16, verse 16. Thus, in process of time, an ungodly custom grown strong was kept as a law. And graven images were worshipped by the commandments of kings. Because you had that. Various rulers and leaders who, in process of time, like with these things that, and of course, it lets you know these things are ungodly customs. God does not want these things. He doesn't want you, operating, doing things in this type of manner, because it causes a lot of problems. It causes a lot of problems. And again, it's a problem with the Most High. You may say, what's the big deal with things? Or, but with the Most High, it's a big deal, because this is how idolatry starts. And now you have this person, man, woman, little child, that's looked at as being worshipped, as a god. Or people, later on begin to take this person as a god and view them, as a god. So just that quickly. So, and then, other rules make it even laws and policy that, yes, on this 30th day of May, we make sure we give honor to, uh, Tyrese Moore for, you know, dedication and service, and we make sure we bake all their favorite treats. They love the Pop Tarts and fried chicken tenders, and bring those things and lay it down before them, so they may look from the heavens and be proud and feel honored and special and know that we haven't forgotten them. So, and light candles and incense, and we sit here and we'll communicate with them, and with the answer, we'll pray to them, that they will hear our prayers and look after us. Like all these things being kept in these ways where most sides like, no, you're doing too much per this situation. Not saying in terms of, because some people may take it so we can't, honor our father and everything. No. That's not what's being said. But it's how it's being executed is now that this is going into a realm where now it's becoming idolatrous. So you're given too much honor in this manner. So that's why the scriptures give us knowledge and understanding on how to go about more so the passing of a loved one and time to grieve, so that way these things don't happen. And then you have it too with you put a big photo of them in the house, and you gotta look at them. They're always there watching us, keeping an eye on us. Like, you start taking it too far. So put all the candles around them and things. It's not. But again, not saying you can't have a picture of a loved one and pass around, but it's not putting the extras on it to make it seem more than what it truly is, or more than what the Most High would want it to be. So it's those things. Verse 17, it says, whom men could not honor in presence because they dwelt far off. They took the counterfeit of his visage from far and made an express image of a king whom they honored, to the end that by this, their forwardness, they might flatter him that was absent as if he were present. So now this is saying a lot, because it dealt with, like verse 17, whom men could not honor in presence. So you had a situation where certain people, they couldn't necessarily be there. You got the monument, the statue, and at the state capitol. Well, not everyone can make it to the state capitol to worship and give honor to the monument. But, you had kings and rulers who didn't stop there. All right, I know y'all can't make it, but that's okay. Just, I bet. We got you. We're gonna make some little statues, so you can still do the same thing and partake. You'll just have little statues. Or now we'll just okay, we can't do a statue. Okay, we'll have the main statue here, but then we'll make pictures. We'll make photos. We'll get good artists to, make these portraits of it, and then everyone can have that in their house, and you can still partake with the rest of us. That's the way they were making. That's the way they were doing it. So, and this is because they dwelt far off. Remember that, because they were distant. They dwelt far off. They didn't live close. They took the counterfeit of his visage. The counterfeit is, it's not really the real thing. It's not really the real thing. It's an imitation. Okay? And their visage, your visage being your face. So they're forging the face, forging their identity to try to get people to still be able to worship, this thing in general. The counterfeit his visage from far and made an express image of a king whom they honored. So that's what they did. So That's why you don't really read, our foremothers making, statues and things of themselves or, each other, things of that nature. Because no, that's how idolatry starts. It's a gateway drug. As I say, it's a gateway sin. Once you start doing that, then you start doing this, and you start doing this. Start trimming your ways. Nope, you don't want that, because then it'll set you up for failure. Because where you weren't committing idolatry, now you are. Or you may ignorantly be committing idolatry. I didn't know these things were that bad. I didn't know God felt this way about these things. But now that I know, I'll begin to work actively to change it. You got to work actively to change it. So now, so verse 17, men express image of a king whom they honored, to the end that by this, their forwardness, they might flatter him that was absent as if he were present. So in that forwardness being in their wickedness, but by doing these things that in their wickedness, they might be able to still appease whoever this person or deed or thing is, as if they were present, even though they're not really there. So trying to do things and to hopefully be pleasing, but you're being offensive to the number one entity that it matters most to, and that's the Most High. So now, verse 18. Also, the singular diligence of the artificer did help to set forward the ignorant to more superstition. So now I said, man, to make it worse, you have some people that are just so skillful and talented, they just make the matter worse. They be so as skillful and talented as they want to, but now, because they're so skillful and talented, they're causing more harm than good, because you didn't perfected the image. You didn't crafted and molded it to perfection. But the thing is, it's an idol. It shouldn't exist to be there in the first place. So it's like you in sin, but you're just sinning so well. It was just formed in just such prestige and excellence, but it's the wrong thing. The wrong thing to have going on or be partaking in or worshiping. So 19, like it says, for he, peradventure, willing to please one in authority, that's how it happens. I'm trying to please someone else. So, of course, I'm going to make the best that I can of this, because this is supposed, the queen needs me to make, or the king, or the president, vice president, or the CEO, the boss, so on and so forth, needs me to make this. Oh, yeah, I'll make it for him. I'll make sure I do a good job and carve and really they get all the details. Fine tuning and carving. Hey, people get all the details. So that's what you had. That's why it says 18. Also, the singular diligence of the artificer did help to set forth the ignorant to more superstition. So now, problem is these things that when you have people who are unaware, they're either in the world trying to learn or in the truth trying to learn. You can be in a space where they can get messed up because they're trying to please one in authority, with these things, but you ain't moving right, So you don't want that. So like it says, for he peradventure willing to please one in authority, like it says, forced all his skill to make the resemblance of the best fashion. You got people willing to give they all, but may not understand what all they're doing and what's right or what's wrong. So you don't want that, because some people go all out. You have it. People have skill. You have talent, but how you use your talents matters. How you use your skills matters. So, like I said, it's forced all the skill to make the resemblance of the best fashion. People put their all, but you can put your all into the wrong thing. Like you can be going, like it doesn't matter if you're going, uh, man, you moving at 100,000 miles per hour, you moving mountains, but in the wrong direction. You don't want that. That happens. A lot of people get caught up like that. So you moving fast, but in the wrong direction. That's gonna cause problems because now you got to come all the way back, and that road can be long. Verse 20. And so the multitude, allured by the grace of the work, took him now for a god, which a little before was but honored as a man. That's what you have. You have where a situation where some of these deities they started off with just honoring a particular person, male or female. But then it started with the customs and things, the mindset, people started to take it as a god. You look at even other statues and things, even other celebrities like that, that passed, like, you know, famous NBA player, Kobe Bryant. Being in a space where like some people, you see like with statues they made, they gotta, I just gotta touch a statue for good luck, and just feel blessed and things like that. That's what happens. You know, that's how those things start. People they gotta, honor that way. Just feel like he just watching me, just, his energy, he just, gives me luck. Feel like if I wear his jersey and if I play ball in it, my skills just improve that much the more. So people begin to pour their mind and energy into these things. So, and what used to be worship as a man and now worship as a god, because the subtleties are just there like that. It's just I keep going little by little, further and further left. And so I'm moving in the opposite direction what the Most High would prefer or want. Just that fast. Verse 21. And this was an occasion to deceive the world, for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. So, again, you have a situation where these things come in and it deceives a lot of people, because in various religions, people think that they're doing the right thing, with the worship of these idols, the carrying of them, walking with them, parading with them, having them in their home or in their place of worship or both, setting yourself up for failure. So that's why I said this was an occasion to deceive the world. So many people first deceiving themselves. So for men serving either calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. That you're giving the honor and credit to these stone or wood, deities, made by man's hands and man's ideology. You're so caught up in that, you're forgetting about me. You're forgetting about the Most High God, your power. So sometimes you got to humble you so you see. Need you be in the word or in the truth. Humble you so you begin to repentancy, or just, hey, you going kind of left. I care about you. Let me, nudge you, pop you a little bit, and all right, let me get you back on track. So you have that. So now, it says in verse 21, this was an occasion to see the world, for men serving the calamity or tyranny did ascribe unto stones and stocks the incommunicable name. 22, moreover, this was not enough for them. So for some, still wasn't enough. They still wanted more. That they erred in the knowledge of God. See, that's the other sense. Some people, they're in error. They're in error. but they're in error as it concerns the knowledge of God. Knowledge is what? The information. The information as it pertains to God, but the information on as it pertains how to serve God properly, righteously. That that's a big thing. That's not something small. So, like it says, moreover, this was not enough for them that they erred in the knowledge of God, but where they lived in the great war of ignorance, those that so great plagues they called they peace. So some of you live in the great war of ignorance. Some people don't think that you're in war. No, you're in war. And a big part of that war now is propaganda, advertising, things of pen and paper, or keyboard type in a monitor. But nevertheless, you are in war. One of the biggest part of the war, the great war of ignorance. So, which is twofold. So the great war of ignorance, you deal with those who, because with ignorant, you have those that are not dumb, they're just unaware. When you're aware, you got to deal with those who aren't aware. So, but then you also, on the other hand, of those who are not aware, but they choose to ignore the information or ignore the signs and things. They don't take heed. Have that as well. So, I would say they lived in the great war of ignorance. That we're in war. Weapons of our warfare aren't carnal, but spiritual. That's the hardest battle, because the spirit is what is the key thing that's controlling these bodies. Is the spirit in you, and it's just what spirit is most of your makeup. Spirit of anger, sorrow, jealousy, envy, or joy, peace, love, and chicken grease. Who knows? I mean, just what are you mostly fueling your spirit with? So they live in a great war of ignorance. Those so great plagues called they peace, because the Most High, He's judging, but yet with all this judging, instead of you repenting, you're still not seeing that God is bringing these things because you're not moving right. He's bringing these things so that you begin to look up and ask Him for help, so you can begin to make the changes to repent, to be at one with the Most High. 23. Whilst they slew their children in sacrifices, or used secret ceremonies, or made revelings of strange rites. So now you have all this. Different types of ceremonies to destroy, or all types of ceremonies that they destroy everything that the Most High is trying to set up for what He wanted us to be. While they slew their children in sacrifices, that's a big part. Slaying of children in sacrifice, sacrificing your kids. People doing that in different levels. Today, it's not necessarily as much of what was done then, but today people sacrifice their kids, but not in the good ways. You give them over to idolatry, because think about it, when you try to tell people about these holidays and the roots of them, the pagan roots, a lot of time their first line of thought is to say, well, it's for the kids. But you're not understanding, when you say that and you continue to move in what you're moving, you're sacrificing your children to other gods. So you don't want that. Definitely don't want that. And people do that with things from Halloween, let's just, for example, big one. So oh, I need my kids to, wear a nice outfit, look cute, and you know, there's nothing wrong with dress up, but not don't do it for Halloween, you know. So you don't want to do that because you'll find out if you do the research. There's a lot of guys associated with Halloween. So you can have that. Verse 24. Oh, yeah, let me verse 20. So, for whilst they slew their children in sacrifices or use secret ceremonies, that's where you have like the grove and the occult, like they be having secret ceremonies and all those other, even other organizations do secret ceremonies where they're doing things that are very harmful and injurious. So, in more ways than one. One way is that, yeah, you have the idolatry thing that they're worshiping, but you also have in the example being set forth, in their relationships and with their children, their households, that every now and then you see come out that the kid they can attest to the things that their family members or parent things are involved in that that's a lot of strange things going on. So it says, for while they slew their children in sacrifice or use secret ceremonies or made revelings of strange rites. Some of those things that the reveling of strange rites are some of those things that you would call like spells and things that nature, just some strange things people be saying, and causing more problems. So 24. It said they kept neither lives nor marriages any longer undefiled. They didn't keep their it said lives nor marriages. Keeping your life undefiled. How? Through staying clean to the Most High's laws. That's how you keep your life undefiled. And same thing with marriages. Making sure your marriage, first and foremost, with the Most High is undefiled. You're only married to the Most High God power. But the other thing, marriage, you're defiling, your marriage. So, and just through how you're moving. So, but it's saying that these things it can lead to, like I said, they be gateway drugs. One thing leads to the next. So, not knowing, and I mean, shoot, even look at influences in our forefathers. Look at Solomon. Love many strange women, and but those strange women, those women of other nations, and even some of the Israelite women started to turn away his heart to other gods, other deities, because you begin to trim your ways and bend your ways. So you don't want that. So they kept neither alive nor married any longer undefiled. So, but either one slew another traitorously, or grieved him by adultery. So most are showing that these things becomes a domino effect into other sins and things that are done that negatively affect you and the household and the families. So it becomes a gateway thing. It can lead. I'm not saying necessarily that it would do that for just anyone, no. But you have various strange rites and things that are done, and people feel justified because this is part of how we worship, how we celebrate. Yeah, people who, this is where, be honest, this is where a lot of kids end up going missing too, because they're being used in these strange sacrifices and rites and things of that nature that people feel they have to do to honor their gods, the things that they believe in. That, I mean, those things cause a problem. So, like I said, 25. So that there reigned in all men without exception blood, manslaughter, theft, and dissimulation, corruption, unfaithfulness, tumults and perjury, disquieting of good men, forgetfulness of good turns, defiling of souls, changing of kind, disorder in marriages, adultery, and shameless uncleanness. So all these things can come about with idolatry because some of these things is built into some beliefs. Some believe this is, hey, some of these things are part of worship or ceremonies and things or rituals that they have in honor of their gods or the days of their religious ceremonies or rites to honor whatever deity or deities they believe in. So, hey, no one knows where the nose goes when the doors is closed. You don't know what's happening in people's houses or what people are doing after work, where they going, and what they're part of. Some of those things are dangerous, toxic, causing problems because of the various belief systems that they think is good, but it's not. So, verse 27, for the worshiping idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. That a lot comes from the worshiping of these idols. A lot comes from it. A lot stems from it. Not everything we may think, but there's so many different belief systems out there that are tied to it that you don't know what you're getting. So you don't know what you're getting. So, and those things, not all those things just gonna be taught just openly, because some of those things in this day and age, people understand that the world ain't feeling like that. So I gotta do certain things in secret on down low, just like certain organizations like the KKK. Why did they wear those hoods and masks? To hide their identities. Why? Because a lot of times these were the same people who were, uh, the doctors, lawyers, politicians, but yet they had these other beliefs, and they didn't want to openly be out where people would know. Oh, ain't that so and so? Ain't that Bill from finance? No, they didn't want that. They want to be able to keep certain things secret and separate. So that's what they want. That's what they were shooting for. 28, it says, for either they are mad when they be merry, or prophesy lies, or live unjustly, or else lightly forswear themselves. So just letting it be known that you have situations where, due to idolatry, sometimes people be upset, even though they're supposed to be having a good time, and they may have prophecies, but these are lies. These things aren't the truth. So, and then you live unjustly. With how you live, supposedly you're supposed to believe in these things, but yet there's a lack of morality. You see it with a lot of these other religious belief things. You see that there's a lack of morality and how they move, and or the civility, or the how they deal with one another civilly. You see things that are lacking. So 29, it says, for insomuch as their trust is in idols, which have no life, so they swear falsely, yet they look not to be hurt. So, and man, like I said, verse 30, howbeit for both causes shall they be justly punished, both because they thought not well of God, giving heed unto idols, and also unjustly swore in deceit, despising holiness. A lot of people they despise holiness. They don't want to worship the way the Most High want to worship. Nah, I want to do what I feel. I like this, therefore I do this. Nope, you don't want that. This is what I like to do. This is how I feel. This is what I think. No, it's learning what does the Most High feel? What does the Most High think? What does the Most High like? Because I'm supposed to be serving and pleasing the Most High, pleasing the Creator. So, not saying you can't please the creation, but it has to be within the realm of the Creator, not how the creation wants, things that. No, I have to stay within the confines of the order that the Most High God set up. 29, for insomuch as their trust is in idols, which have no life, because those idols, they're not alive. They're not living. Those pictures, statues, no. They have to be born, carried. Or they swear falsely, yet they look not to be hurt. So even all these things that talk about Father, but still you don't want anything to happen to these idols. They're precious to you. Things like they say of sentimental value. 30. Howbeit for both causes shall they be justly punished. But yet, with these situations, you're still going to be justly or rightfully punished for these things because it's not right. It's not approved of the Most High. Both because they thought not well of God, giving heed to idols, that you weren't really concerned with the Most High God because you gave yourself fully over into these idols and idolatry. And also unjustly swore in deceit, despising holiness. So yeah, that too. You don't want to be despisers of holiness. You want to learn what is holiness and how can I become holy. Verse 31. Let me see, this probably, last one, verse 31. It reads, for it is not the power of them by whom they swear, but it is the just vengeance of sinners that punisheth always the offense of the ungodly. So now think about that. Like it says, it's the actions, that cause the righteous fear of the Most High God to be poured out. It's by your actions. If you want peace, live peaceably. Live righteously if you want peace. If not, you're going to have more problems. So with the Most High. So you don't want that. So, but nevertheless, pray you got some out of reading Wisdom of Solomon chapter 14. Next time we'll have a clean break. So we'll start at the top. That's part of why I also want to get there too. So we start at the top of Wisdom of Solomon chapter 15 and verse 1. So Wisdom of Solomon chapter 15 and verse 1. We'll have a pretty clean, solid break. So pray you guys got something out of the lesson. Pray you learned something. And, that it help you fight to be better and do better in all things. But with that, go ahead and say Shalom.